Hey guys, welcome back to the Bio Guide, and if you're new here, welcome to my channel. As indicated by the title, I'm going to be talking about the carbon cycle. I'm going to split up this video into the processes that add carbon to the atmosphere and processes that remove carbon from the atmosphere. But before we get into that, I would like to discuss why this carbon cycle is so important and relevant to life on Earth. Carbon essentially makes up all the organic molecules that are important to life. They make up proteins, lipids, nucleic acids, and carbohydrates, which are the four classes of organic molecules. They're used as sources of energy and are used to fuel all of our biological processes. So carbon, as many say, is a life-sustaining element. Alright, so I have this little setup here with some animals, plants, a pond, and a little factory in the background that seems to be out of place, but it's still relevant for how I'm going to describe this process. Let's begin with the processes that add carbon to our atmosphere. The most obvious way that carbon is released into our atmosphere is through respiration, which is not exactly the same thing as breathing. Breathing is when you inhale and exhale, and respiration is more of a chemical process that involves the breakdown of glucose into energy in the form of ATP while oxygen is present. I'm not going to go too far into this because that's not the purpose of this video, but this reaction requires the taking in of oxygen in exchange for the release of carbon dioxide. Both plants and animals carry out respiration, and some people are surprised that's the case because they think that plants only photosynthesize. But it's true that plants respire because they need to take in oxygen as well in order to break down food molecules and obtain that energy. And they do it whether it's daytime or nighttime. Basically, all living things respire, as shown in the diagram. Another process that adds carbon in the atmosphere is combustion, which is basically when you burn something. Fossil fuels like coal, oil, and natural gas are burned in factories to generate electricity. Fossil fuels contain a lot of carbon, so when they're burned in factories, the carbon is released into the atmosphere in the form of carbon dioxide, as indicated by the smoke in the diagram. There are a bunch of things we do in our everyday lives that require combustion. If you take a car or public transportation to school, the fuel that the vehicle runs on is involved in combustion. If you've ever lighted a candle, that's combustion. If you have a fireplace at home and you burn firewood to heat up your home, or if you cook food on a gas stove, these are all examples of combustion. All forms of combustion release carbon dioxide into the air, but the emissions from factories is where the most carbon dioxide is released into the atmosphere. Lastly, the third process that adds to the amount of carbon in the atmosphere is decomposition. When an organism dies, like this giraffe or this fox, the decomposers, such as the earthworm or the fungus in the picture, or I didn't put this, but the bacteria in the soil, are responsible for releasing the carbon that's trapped inside the dead matter of these organisms through the process of decomposition. Decomposers are extremely essential in nature because without them we would have a lot less atmospheric carbon and a lot more waste and dead organisms piling up. Now let's move on to the main process that removes carbon from the atmosphere, which is photosynthesis. This is when photosynthetic organisms, such as plants, take in CO2 from the atmosphere to make food or glucose by converting light energy from the sun into chemical energy. Other organisms that conduct photosynthesis are algae and cyanobacteria, which can be found in lakes and ponds, like the one in the picture. To wrap up this video, here's a quick summary. Keep in mind that this is a continuous cycle, so there's no real particular order. Carbon dioxide is added to the atmosphere from factory emissions from the combustion of fossil fuels, as well as from the cellular respiration from living organisms. Even more CO2 is added after decomposers release carbon into the atmosphere from decaying carcasses. The atmospheric CO2 is then taken in by plants so that they can use it for photosynthesis. One thing that I didn't note before but is really important is that the organic carbon that makes up plants or producers are transferred to organisms that eat these plants, which is why or how decomposers are able to release the carbon that's trapped in their carcasses when they die. So basically, carbon is transferred throughout the whole food chain. Anyways, when the organism that ate the producers die, Fossil fuels are formed with the remains of these dead organisms, and once again, carbon dioxide is recycled back into the atmosphere either via decomposition or through the burning of these fossil fuels, and the cycle continues. If you got this far, thank you so much for watching this video, and if you would like more content like this, then make sure to like and subscribe.